Assalamu alaikum. That is, may God's peace be upon you. Welcome back to the Power of Educating Our Own. This is a show that is hosted by the Cloud Muhammad Schools Network. I am Marsha Nivens Muhammad, and I'm here with
Patricia Salahuddin. Welcome.
And Quran Shakir, welcome.
So we are back for another episode, and it's exciting to know that we still rolling, we're still going. We're glad that you all are joining us on this journey. If you from wherever you're joining us from, please drop in the chat where that is, so we can know where you're joining us from. We've been having all sorts of conversation about educating our own, establishing schools and models for that. We've been talking about how to fund our schools. We've been talking about the history of even establishing our schools, like what that journey was like for those who were there in those very early days of establishment. And tonight we're going to, and then we also talked about like having a garden on the school's premises and implementing what we have in the garden in the classroom. So that was really fun as well. And tonight we're going to talk about addressing special needs of our children in our school system. So one of the things when we think about establishing our own schools, whether it be a Claire Muhammad school or another private Islamic education school, because it may not necessarily hold that term Claire Muhammad, but when we talk about these schools, in a lot of cases, they're smaller schools. They perhaps have a few less resources than you would see in the mainstream, right? And so we want to have a conversation around how do we serve all learners in these environments, given the resources that we may have. And so tonight's guest is Sister Muslimatu Nero, and she is joining us from, I always want to say Detroit, but I think it's a little bit outside of Detroit. And she is the principal of our Class Training Academy. And so we are going to bring her on and allow her to introduce herself to us. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Muslimatu.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How is everyone this evening?
Doing well. So we're going to jump right into the conversation. Tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do, and why you love doing it.
Who am I? Sister Quran got me with that at one of the meetings that we had, so I won't give the extended answer that I gave her. I am one who is seeking knowledge and one who is doing her very best to pass on the gift of knowledge in any area that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me in order to help the Ummah grow. One of my specialties, which I have dealt with for decades, is actually special education and children who are at risk. And that leaves not too many out, does it? Because so many of us are at risk for many different things. I am an educator who is living her dream. That's what I've always wanted to be my whole life, an educator. Never dreamt I would be a principal, but I am honored to have the position. And I ask everyone to pray my strength as I go on. With that, 5 children, 22 grandchildren, 14 great-grandchildren, and I'm still here.
Alhamdulillah. Yes. I wasn't even expecting that other stuff you put in there. So tell us about so you just shared that education is sort of what you always wanted to do, right? You wanted to be a teacher, and I imagine that special education is this, you got to kind of have this love for education from that perspective. And so talk to us a little bit about your experience over the years in special education.
I got into special education because of one of my very own children. He's now 46, 47. I get them confused a little bit. So, we're talking about 30 some to 40 years ago. And my baby was classified as with specific learning disabilities, which is still one of the 13 areas that you do qualify for special ed. His difficulty was that he not only wrote his name and things backwards, but he wrote the aura to his name upside down. And so they gave him a lot of different things to do. But I found him put into a group of kids who were not as academically strong as him. And so I entered special ed to really working with him. I got fine sandpaper and cut out the letters with it. And I said to him, son, I'm not sure how your brain is seeing this, because I didn't use perceive at that age, but I had him feel the letters so that he could tell where he was. I don't think I knew about kinesthetic learners at that time, but I knew that this helped him. And then, doing it with the fingerprints. So then I began to go and work with the school because I wanted a better quality of education for my own child. A little selfish, I know. But then as that happened, you know how when you hang around a school, I was in the public school system. So when you hang around a school and they see you doing something, then they give you a job. So I started out as a paraprofessional, and then as a paraprofessional and an aide. And then Prince George's County, that's the county I was from, gave this program where they paid for us to go and get our master's. So, hey, I'm in. They paid for me to go to Johns Hopkins. I got my master's of education there. It was a kicker, though, because, you have to maintain a certain GPA. But with that said, I found out that it hurt my heart to see children just kind of sitting there. Every door has a lock, or every lock has a key, but the same key does not open every lock. So you have to find out what it is that's going to open the potential of that child. And I know that's a difficult job sometimes, but that's what I really found about special education. It started with the testing. And although it's a government program, it's, idea, but it started with the testing and everything. And then you find out what the child needs, what the deficiencies are. Now, in the public school system, they've got lots of money, just about every system that you see in whatever state. My dilemma right now is how do I make, when you get lemons and they're dry, you got to teach somebody, okay, don't throw them away. Let's make lemon zest. So then we're going with this. Here we are. I'm at Alec class now, and we have the greatest group of students and staff that you want. But like everyone else, we don't have a lot of money. Okay. So then we have to come back. How do I meet these needs of the students with what we have? And a lot of that comes with changing the content and the process. That's how I got here and why I'm here and what I like to. Oh, and I have some of my own grandchildren at the Alec class. So of course I want the best. Still selfish. I'm sorry.
I think it's a good selfish. So I think that it's amazing that this came out of your own personal experience. And as I hear you tell your story, the level of patience that you were able to exhibit with your child as you're experiencing these learning differences, I think is amazing. And it was creative, right? You talked about the sandpaper, and even acknowledging, like, son, I don't necessarily know how your brain is processing this, but we're going to figure this out. And I think a lot of times with special education, for families and even for educators, it can be a difficult journey in attempting to discover what am I looking at and how do I help to unravel the puzzle. And so I guess where my mind goes to is, special education over the years has had like such a stigma, right? And so I'm curious to know, for you, how has that changed? You're in the school system now versus 46 years ago, or close to that time when your son was going through, when you were going through discovering the learning differences in your son. How has special education transformed? Because it used to be such a stigma even when I was in school.
Well, in a lot of places, it really has not changed. Okay. We have to deal with the fact that it does not change, that a lot of times students feel some embarrassment. And I'm talking about in any place, they feel some embarrassment in things like that, being pulled away from their class. I remember in Maryland, there's always this bus, and for some reason, the smaller bus picked up the students with special needs. I'm talking about that went to a school that had all special needs, and there was the joke about they're riding the short bus. So there's always some type of joke or something that goes, and it's difficult because all of us, including parents, we can see the cut. So we get the stitches and we heal. We can see the burn, so we do whatever, but we cannot see what's going on here. And that is the difficult part because we can't see that. The biggest thing right there is to have the child begin, because my experience is once they start to learn and that gap is closed some, they have more confidence about themselves. It's important that when you're doing something that's helping the child bridge that gap, that they're not embarrassed about it. I'm trying to come now to the schools that we have right now. We have students with needs. We have students that need our help. But I have, let's say, a 12th grader who is still struggling to read. So you can do a couple of things. I have literally given them their part to practice first. This is what you're going to read so that they can, not feel embarrassed and come with that and read that. And you can, have them do silent reading. And I've even had groups where I would put them with the same students that are having difficulty with the language because they're, just gotten into the country. And I can actually, what we're reading, the wonderful thing about the networks right now is you can listen to it. Everything is audio so that they can listen to that. And that helps them to really comprehend. But has the stigma gone? Not completely, but we're working on it. And I think as we do it with dignity and respect, as we treat them with dignity and respect, they will process it that way.
I love your approach, Sister Muslimat. It's so beautiful, that concept that you have. And two things come to my mind. One is, I hear you when you say a child may have trouble reading. But what if you cannot easily identify what the challenge is and it shows up as misbehavior, but really it's a child trying to cover up that learning need that they may have? So, how do we actually identify the challenges of our students and then begin the process of meeting those needs?
Well, there's a couple of ways, Dr. Karan. The first way is the TTT lesson plan, where you test, teach, test. You do the pre-test to see where they are, how they can handle it. Then you teach, and you teach because especially if you're teaching middle and high school, and you may be dealing with a concept or a skill that they did not master, but you don't know that yet. So it's no sense in starting a lesson plan way over here if the child is not there. So I like to use that when I'm beginning new units or new things like that. Then I know in the middle and high school, how do I have to go back and pull in some foundation knowledge? That's one way. Another way is that when you're seeing behavior problems, and it's different in small schools when you don't have a lot of people. But one of the ways that I tell the teachers to do, or that we try to work out, is what's called the ABC. And that's the behavior, the antecedent, and the consequence. Because if you can identify what happened before the behavior, let me back up. A child is in math class and they're acting up. And they're acting up to the point that you want to send them out, or you need to take them and set them aside. Then what happened? And then the consequences, they go out. When you keep that log, especially if you're going from classroom to classroom and it's not happening in all the classrooms, um, it's not necessarily the behavior management of the teacher as much as it is the child wants the consequence of getting put out the room. Do you see what I'm saying? So if I note that when he comes to your English class, he's not having a problem. When he goes to the science class, he's not having a problem. But when he comes to my class, and I think I'm a stronger teacher as a science teacher and the English teacher, and if we see that, then we see what is going on before he does that. Then there naturally are things, we can get to that a little later, but there are things that you can do when you're trying to help the behavior management. But even when we have special ed, the first thing is observation. The teacher keeps different observations. They'll be sent to the doctor for testing if that needs to be. But observation is to what is going on. Teachers have a long list. I'm talking about when they go into the regular special ed. They have a long list of things to check off to see what's going on. We can do some of that list too. I think a lot of times I've heard teachers say, we don't want to talk their private business or something like that, but we're a team, and we're a team that has to work with them together. So we need to talk their private business. Sometimes I know what's going on with Ali, but you don't, okay? Maybe I know that Ali's father just left the family, or, I might know something that would impact what the child is doing or what the child is going through. Somebody's mom or dad is in the hospital. We've just had someone who, who passed away. All these different types of things can affect our children. We also have to realize that some children need different things. Let's not back the children up into a wall. Malik needs to walk, okay? Give him constructive planned walking. Let him pass out the papers. Give him constructive planned walking. Give him something that he can do to use that energy. Maybe he can't do it all the time, but give him constructive planned walking. Let's go to our schools. All of this is going to start with lesson planning. And lesson planning is going to start with to identify your different groups. And that begins with testing, okay? You have to identify where the different students are. It's no sense in me giving everyone the death of a salesman if they can't read that, if they can't read on that level. There is nothing in the standards that says every child that's reading a novel in this class has to read the same novel. Now, most of you all probably do not know, unless you came from the South, about a one-room classroom, okay? But they touched every need for every grade there. And it worked, and it worked. As African Americans, we had the worst of anything that was left over and given to us before Brown versus the Board of Education. Before all we did it. My brothers went out and did gigging. They went out and got the moss. They did all these different things, and the guppies and things, the tadpoles and things, to bring back for the science class. So we worked at that. The first thing that I think we should remember is that we are an important part in that says, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. We're the knowledge giver, and we have to learn too. And it's an active word. It's a verb. So I say start with testing. I say start with your students. And I know it gets a little difficult, but I also give out a test for learning styles. It was last year was my first year that I gave out the test for learning styles for teachers, because what we don't want to admit is we have different not learning styles, teaching styles. You know what I'm trying to say? Some of us still want everybody to sit in the room in a row, and be quiet. And that's not working, not for any of our kids nowadays. We have to be able to understand that. I think when we start with identifying the type of student that we have, then you wouldn't make all of your lessons just to hit one type. You wouldn't just for the hearer, for the listener, for the audio. You have to do, and even under kinesthetics, there's different things. So I get excited, so let me slow down. Start with identifying what type of student you have, and you identify how that student best learn by giving them a test. And there are tests all online and everything else, and we can put some there so that they can, for learning styles. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you don't have iReady Start or anything like that, most textbooks start with a pre-test in the book for you to know for the chapter. And in the beginning of the year, you can go online and let's say I'm teaching 8th grade this year. Give the test for the 7th grade end of the year, so that we can see what they know, and then you can see what they don't know. Students come to us from different areas, from different countries, from different neighborhoods, from different everything, and we're still here.
We're here. You're going in and out, but go ahead and speak, and we'll let you know if we can hear you. Okay, so her audio's in and out. She may need to come back in, or maybe it'll reset. So this conversation is getting really good. When I think about addressing children's needs, learning different learning styles and learning aptitude and all of this stuff, it does get challenging. It gets challenging for the family. Yeah. It gets challenging for the educator in the classroom, who now has to perhaps tailor the instruction in the classroom in a different way. But the thing that came up for me as she was speaking was that as an educator, it's important to be observant. And I would imagine that that's you as a parent as well, right? Is to observe what's happening with the child, when it's happening with the child, and perhaps we can piece together the why it's happening with the child. And so, we'll as we continue this conversation, I'm sure we'll dig more into all of these different pieces. But right now, I just want to do a station identification. You are watching The Power of Educating Our Own. This is a show hosted by the Clara Muhammad Schools Network. And today we are talking about special needs, or addressing special needs in our Islamic schools. In many cases, they are smaller schools with fewer resources, and we're talking about creative and innovative ways to still be able to provide our children with what it is that they need, given those situations. We do have a few people joining us. We have Imam Nadir from Detroit. He sends his salams to us. We have Sister Majida Abdul Kareem from the ATL. She says, learning attainment boosts confidence. Yes. We have Brother Anthony giving his salams. Let's see, who else do we have? We have Brother Zaid. He says, reading specialist / assessment and diagnostics of special learning needs. And I'm sure at some point in the conversation, that thing might have just stood out for him. So thank you for sharing, Brother Zaid. Then we have Sister Rashida, who says, mashallah, this is beautiful. One size doesn't fit all. And I think that will come out as we further this conversation. It's already kind of been highlighted that every child has a different way that they perceive the thing that you are articulating to them. And as the educator, it's our job to find that out and then to tailor our instruction to it. There were some time, and I'll do let me do the last few comments, and then I want to make a comment. Let's see, who else do we have here? Assalamu alaikum.
I'll follow you.
And then we have Master Wali Muhammad, Imam Tawheed. Assalamu alaikum, Imam Tawheed, from Detroit. He sends his salams to the educators and Muhammad Sharif. So I was thinking, as I was just making that statement, that there were times when the school would contact me and they want to meet about, how my daughter is doing in school, right? And then I would go and I would sit and we would talk about, the different challenges that she was having. And, in some instances, I was saying to myself, like, I obviously I will do my part to help her to do whatever it is that she needs to do to succeed in school. But something always just stood out for me, and something just kind of like bubbled in me that said, like, you're the educator. And so I'm expecting, like, all of those, little tricks of the trade that you learned along the way. I want to see your teaching magic, and some educators are really good at bringing out that teaching magic, and others need some additional support. So I just wanted to share that, because we have some really good educators that are very observant and can piece together the things that their students need. And we need to see more of that. Sister Karan, you were going to share something.
Yes, I want to thank you, Sister Muslimatu. What you have shared has been amazing. And so really what I want to share is like a recap, but adding to it. And that is to remind all of our educators and our parents.
Did we freeze?
Keep a journal. When you keep a journal, that journal becomes a way for you to track what's going on. And I love that when you said that. And then also, I love the fact that you said to do that pre-test. And that pre-test is not just looking to see what they know about the subject that you're trying to teach, the dress you're trying to sew for them to put on, which may not be a dress that will fit them. But really, that pre-test is to see what their learning style is, what their learning level is, and what their learning need is. And when we look at those kinds of things, then we can begin to design the pattern to fit the student, so that we are not those who are just trying to make everybody wear the same dress, the same size dress, and the same design of a dress. We're going in there really personalizing that learning for them. And that then makes everybody a student with special needs, because we're not labeling anybody.
I have a question for Sister Muslimatu.
And special education is just glorified.
So yes, I think, she can hear you, Sister Patricia. There's a little lag, but go ahead, Dr. Patricia.
Oh, yes. Okay. So we're talking about, first of all, I'm really enjoying this conversation because I've been in education for a long time, and I didn't teach special ed, but I've definitely had children who were in this, had to go to the special ed program, and then they'll come back to my class. And there's certain things I needed to know. And we had to work very closely with the special ed teacher in order to make sure that when that child came to my class, that child was getting what it needed from me as their teacher in that particular subject that I was teaching. But I have a question that I know that kind of hits to the area of our schools, in that we talk about the dress not fitting everyone. At what point do you realize the dress is not going to fit at all, and that we in this setting may not be able to address the needs of this child? How can we make that decision? And what do we do when we make that, when that decision, when it comes to that?
I have faced a few parents who have had students that have definitely had needs and may have even come to us with an IEP. And the statement that they make is that they really want their child there for the dean. They want their child there for the religion. If we can meet that child, because some needs you can meet right there in the classroom, other needs you cannot. And then there are also times that parents don't tell you their child has this need that they know the child has, and you bring the child in and you find out that there is a great need. I have honestly sat down and spoke to a couple of parents, and I did have two parents. I spoke to them and I said, sometimes I'm a very blunt person, and I say, One thing that I know is that we're all going to die. And hopefully we're going to meet the pattern where we as the grown-up goes before our children. I'm asking you to put your child somewhere where they can get help to be able to be a valuable adult, a functioning adult when you're not there. Do you understand? And literally, we have one child whose mother is at our school. She took him out. She put him in a special school where, well, in a school that has an IEP program. And he happens to be in college right now, because you do know IEPs go all the way up to 22, I think it is, and they can go to college using the modifications and accommodations. Does that work with everyone? Of course not. So what we do is the best that we can do. That's all we can do. There's no S on our chest for Superwoman, Superman. We do the best that we can. We give the facts as we can see them honestly, and we explain. But what am I going to say to you when you tell me, I know I can do math, English, this, that, and the other, any place else. I want my child with you for the dean. Do we say no? I hope not. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to continue to do the best that we can with that child. All we can do is, in anything that you do, and let's say this child is a genius, whatever, your child is 7 years old and he's in the 12th grade, and we want to talk about, I think that maybe you ought to take him home for a while before you throw him into college. We would say that, even though I'm reading about 12-year-olds graduating with, doctoral degrees and all. I'm not sure what they do at 12 when they finish getting that. But we have to do the best we can. We have to realize that we can't change everything, and give that child something there. Even if he's there with us, teach them something. And when I say something, why not in health and PE, we can teach them how to, we teach them how to make voodoo correctly. So you can teach them how to do something that would be working in nutrition or something like that, even though that might not ideally be in your lesson plan, But I don't want to get too far away from saying that special education is nothing but a glorified way of saying accommodations and modifications. That's exactly what it is, accommodations and modifications. And we can and the IEP reaches a goal with steps. The one thing we have to make all of our teachers remember is, you're not going to give them their whole 12 years in 1 year. You're not going to give them their whole 7th grade in 1 day. So all of this is steps. You make steps to see progress. Sometimes you find that you're not meeting that, you come back and you reevaluate yourself. We have what's called Grade Link that we put our lessons on, and it's on the computer. But what I like about it is it has a section for notes. If I don't get to a certain part, why? I write that for myself, because it's also a place where you can save them and repeat those. One of the things is, when you're talking about differentiation, if I can, remember in your classroom, these are the things that you can do. You can have tiered assignment and assessments, flexible groupings. These things you can do without a lot of money or anything, flexible grouping, technology, mini mapping, project-based things, because when you have project-based, it allows all of those kinesthetic learners and, to do different things. It allows them to draw, to paint, to use different types of material. What I'm really partial to is what I call the choice board. And the choice board looks like a tic-tac-toe board. And you have about 9 subjects on it, and you make the line. You know what I'm trying to say? And it has different things in there. A good choice board has several things for accommodating the different learning styles. It may be something on there where you write, it may be something on there where you act out, but they get to pick what they're going to do. Now, you can put something in the middle where everybody has to do this part, because when you go tic-tac-toe, it's straight in the row. So you can set your choice board up that way. There's many that's already there. Don't think that 12th graders are too old for learning centers. Don't think that they're too old to do that. And the flipped classroom, especially for those of you that might have high school students, they go home, they do the reading and they do everything. And then when they come in, they do interactions. It's not lectures. They're actually interacting and things. So we can use those. We have and I'm using Alec class. I'm sure everybody has many different ways of grading, but we have 25% for classwork and participation. We have 25% for homework, 25% for tests and quizzes, and okay, why am I going on brain freeze? 25% for the final, for each quarter final. So that adds up. But then how are you going to grade that 25%? Do you see? If you've got a child with homework, why does every child in that room have to do 20 problems for their math homework if you know it takes them all day to write one sentence? So it's not going to take you 20 problems to understand if that child knows that concept. So you can give out the number of problems per the skill of the student, and you have just differentiated right there. Okay, you can use the little whiteboards. There's so many things that we can use, and I'd like for us to look at those things that we can use and do. Remember, you differentiate in content, product, and process. So you differentiate on what you're going to do in those three areas. So you look at it, and content is the actual material and things that you must teach. So when you're talking about meeting the needs of a child, you must meet. There are certain standards that run from first grade to 12th grade. What happens in those standards is the intensity and the rigor changes. So if you don't have a child in 12th grade that's ready for 12th grade material, you can take him down a little bit with the hopes of bringing him up or as close to up as possible. I think where we make our mistake is every child's not going to make an A. Every child's not going to make an A, but no child needs to fail. No child needs to fail. It's our job to work with that child and find out where that child is. No child should fail, especially when we have the smallest schools, less red tape, and everything else to go through to work with our students. What happens if okay, you have to look at what the child can do. I'm thinking about be conscious of the child, whether they have glasses on or not, that you see them squinting. And you might need to ask the mother or father to take that child for glasses. But if you know they should wear glasses, move them to the front. Grouping doesn't mean that everybody stays in the same group forever, because I'm not good with chemistry, but I'm great running my mouth. So put me in English, So I wouldn't need to be in the same group for English as I would need to be for chemistry. And the same goes with our students, And so when you do the content, that's what you got to teach. When you look at the different types of lesson plans that's going to help you. I personally like the backward plan. When you go to New York, you don't just jump in your car and start driving. You look at the maps, or you decide what vehicle or which mode of transportation you're going to use. That's the same thing for our children. What is their final destination? How are you going to get them there? Does there need to be detours? How are you going to turn them around? And there's so much that we could do with a workshop or something where you are actually giving them the information, giving them the chance to actually make a choice board, see what one is, do some type of group activity, because the teacher was taught, and we have to remember that we were taught. I'm pretty good at what I do right now. I was lousy my first couple of years in, but I mean, after 40 some years, you're pretty good at what you do, and then you begin to know, well, I'm not as good as I used to be because I'm getting older. It goes around in circles,
Yeah.
But yes, but before we do that, I brought a piece of information that I want to read, and I did ask Dr. Patricia about it. I'm working for Detroit, Michigan. I can't say about anybody else, but for Detroit, Michigan, okay, we had the Detroit Department of Education, and they have a area there for non-public schools, helping them to get to identify their student needs. They do come in. In other words, special ed gives you an IEP. They give you what's called a a NP, which is a non-public school form. But I had the information for the number in DC and things to call, because I can't say what every state has. My niece does special ed in Virginia, and it's a whole different system than what I'm finding out here. Some kids have to some, and then some people that have Title 1, 2, 3, and 4, depending on what you have, you can see if any of that can be used to help you get some of the things. Now, they might not be able to do special ed, because that's a whole different process, but they can certainly help you with some of the tutoring, and check it out to see if you have to have a certain size, because I understand some of us are doing Saturday school, some of us are doing, you know what I'm trying to say, a
Weekend.
very small
Weekend
group. So
school.
see
Mhm.
what can be done there. I didn't want to miss that information. I will send it so that you can actually make those contacts. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. And we appreciate you for sharing it. We actually
I
have
don't know what
I was just saying we have a non-public school designation here in New Jersey as well, where we have access to
okay.
certain resources that the public school has access to, like the nurse. Again, what you're saying, special education, the textbook. So we have a similar setup to what you are describing. I love that you shared that the learning in the classroom or the instruction in the classroom should be diversified to the point where some of it addresses our kinesthetic learners, some of it addresses our auditory learners, some of it, that we mix it up so that all of the children feel like they're able to shine in that area that they are strongest in. So I just wanted to highlight the fact that I love that you shared that, because it I think just brings an awareness to educators that, perhaps for some, they're not conscious of, and perhaps for others it's just a reminder. Yeah, I gotta make sure that I do that. Even when I come away from it, I gotta kind of readjust my instructions so that I always consider that. And then as I was listening to you talk, one of the things that stood out for me, or just kind of was inspired in me, is that, you know when we think about children having learning differences, right? And I'm saying learning differences. I'm throwing out all sorts of terms, right? And so, if I don't mean to be offensive in any way, those are just the terms that are coming out for me. But when you were talking earlier, I was like, well, the reality is that we all have our way of learning, and we can call these special, right? But everyone has a special way of learning. And I think if we're able to start framing it that way, it will be more helpful and take some of the pressure off that exists for both the child and the family and the educator, right? For having to um, teach the child who is perhaps needing some more, like somebody to just dedicate their time in a more I'm looking for some terms that are just not coming to me, but like that can really just hone in on the thing that I need to help me to get to the next stage. I think that'll help to take some of that pressure off. Because when we think about special education, right, there's a lot of pressure there.
But
Yeah.
Sister Marcia, don't fail to ask the child. Do not fail to ask the child what they need. In the beginning of the year, I put up a large poster thing for them to go write on. What do you need from Sister Muslimatu is on one. How do you learn best? Some of them say they like to work with groups. Some of them say they like to work alone. Some of them say they like to work quietly. And I tell them, we will do all of this, but we can't do all of this every day. So once you tell them that, and once you see what they need, one of them told me that she needed me to explain more. And so I have to make sure that I tell them, do not leave this room not understanding me. And we have a rule. In this room, you have the right to make a mistake. You have the right to be wrong. You have the right to make a mistake. You have the right to be wrong. But you do not have the right to laugh at anybody else or to make fun of them. And not to try. You do not have that right. And so far, all these years, it has worked 98% of the time. There's always those times. Nothing is 100, but with the law, you know. So
yeah, that's important. And
I don't know.
Go ahead. Oh, I'll jump in. Now, I was just saying
No.
that,
I don't know if I'm answering or giving you what you need. I'm so full sometimes.
It looks like she froze.
no, she's good, and you're giving us exactly what it is that we need. This is a beautiful conversation. I think it's helping us to recenter our thinking on how we address children and the way that they learn, how we help to dissipate some of these stigmas that come with what we quote unquote deem special education, how to approach it. You were just saying, listen to the child, right? They know what works best for them. And I think the other thing to say to the educator and to the parents, right, is when they tell you those things, make space for them to have that, right? And I'm speaking to myself first as a mom,
Yes.
right? For a child who struggled in certain areas, like, if my daughter needs to do it this way, maybe she can't do it that way all the time, but I should make space for her to do it sometimes so that she doesn't feel like she doesn't have the room to do it in the way that works best for her. Because a lot of times I feel like in education we're pushing the children to conform to this box way of doing it. And there is some room that we can give and some space that we can give from the educator side of it, and the parental side of it, to take, I keep using that word pressure because I've seen it. And so it helps to just take that pressure away from it.
That's
I love
correct.
putting
And I
the
think that's the
power
main thing that
back
we
in
need
the
to
child's hand.
So we have a little bit of a lag.
Yes.
You hear me? I
Yes.
love putting the power.
And they know
Yes,
what they want.
yes. I love it. I love it. And I think also
They know
a
what
part
they
of what
need.
we get in doing this is we also teach all of our students compassion and patience. And that's an important character trait that should be taught. And so we teach them, sometimes you don't know it all and you need someone to have patience with you and compassion with you. So when we group them, we put them in these groups and we teach them also how to work with one another. Sometimes you can have one that is proficient in an area, helping someone who may be struggling in that area. But what we don't want to do is to label any of our students as struggling learners. We want to say that everybody has their level of learning, because Allah says he has arranged us in ranks. So I love that you put the power back in the child's hand and ask them, what do you need and want? I love it.
And one of the things that I've learned just this year, I'm teaching government for the first time. And a lot of things in government I actually lived through, right? So we're up to the civil rights movement and things like that. So we were talking about different things, and I don't know how it came up, but one of my students called me colored. She said, you were colored. And I said, whoa, whoa, because my mind went to the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. Okay. And I had to calm myself down quick. I said, we're going to talk about that word later. She says, well, what did I say, sister? And I said, we're going to talk about that word later, So she said, well, sister, what did I say wrong? I says, colored is a very negative word to me. She said, no, sister. We call all of us colored because but it's a word that they're using now, not like the N word, but it's a word that they're using now. And I'm saying that to say, we have to stay educated as ourselves as to how language changes. You understand? My son, the same one that's in special ed, was talking to somebody on the phone, one of his friends, when he was a young teenager, and he talked about his dog. My dog this, my dog that, my dog this. And I wanted to correct him because he was lying. We don't have a dog. So when he got off the phone, I said to him, why are you telling that somebody that lie right there? So he said, what? So I said, we don't have no dog. So he said, Mom, that's what you call your road dog, your best friend. We have to, and I was a young person then, But anyway, we have to stay up with the and not prejudge, and sometimes come back and ask, can you expound on that? Can you tell me what you mean there, so that you know before you go? But yeah, it's been interesting to do this.
Yeah, no, that was very funny. I am of the era where we were calling everybody our dogs, so I understand it. So this is the power of educating our own. It's a show that's facilitated by
and they're still using those words today, some of them.
Yes, definitely. It's hosted by the Claire Muhammad Schools Network, and we are having a conversation with Sister Muslimatu out of Detroit. She's the principal of Alec Class Training Academy, and we're talking all things special needs in our Islamic schools and how we address various learning styles in an environment that perhaps has limited resources. And thus far, we've talked about all sorts of creative things that you can do. And we've emphasized the fact that it takes observation of what our children are experiencing. It takes us, like I said, being creative and innovative and being able to address the challenges that perhaps some of our children are facing, and to be compassionate. I'm glad Sister Karen brought that out, that it really is a model of teaching our children compassion, because while all the children in the classroom may not be experiencing a challenge, they are observing it happening, and they're observing how it gets addressed, and it's being modeled for them what to do in those scenarios. And so we've just been having a great conversation. I'm going to bring in some of these comments from our viewers. Sister Rashida said, I am learning a lot from this. Two of my grandchildren have special needs. And let's see. Oh, so Dr. Zaid is asking, or Brother Zaid is asking, do we want an interactive audience participation experience? Now, you can throw in any question you want to throw in, Brother Zaid. And if you have a question, please share it so we can get it answered. Imam Nadia is saying, great show, sister. Always love to have Imam Nadir know that he's watching us. He's so supportive. So we appreciate just knowing that he's watching. But like I said, this is a great conversation. A lot of times, we struggle with wanting to touch this conversation. What do we do? How do we do it? Can we provide this can we address this in our schools? Can we provide what the children need? And it leaves us in a conundrum sometimes. But some of the things that you just shared, Sister Muslimatu, like they're very basic things that we can implement. And I appreciate you sharing them, because it wasn't like go read 15 chapters of such and such. It was like, give them space to learn in the way that works best for them. Rotate the way that you're teaching in the classroom. If you have to bring in some materials to help to facilitate maybe their kinesthetic learning or their sensory learning, bring that into the classroom. If you have to give the student the piece to read before they're going to read it so that they're prepared for it, do that. And those are really simple things that we can do. And it's not taking away from us as educators to do that for our children. It's actually empowering them to be confident in their learning. Sister Majida put that in the chat a little bit earlier about she said learning attainment boosts confidence. And so when we allow them to do it their way, like you said, Sister Muslimatu, maybe not all of the time, but some of the time you're going to get that, then they know that when that time comes, like that's going to be my day. That's going to be my week where I shine. And to be able to give that to our students is golden.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And I think this is a good place for us to also add that next week, when we come back to the power of educating our own, we will continue this subject, but we will have scenarios and we'll be able to offer solutions in those scenarios. And I think that is going to be a fun way to also address this. So thank you so much, Sister Muslimatu. This has been so beneficial. And I can see you doing this, Sister Muslimatu, training people. We've been talking about it.
Sister Karan, I am trying to do my best job at ALEC class, and I'm getting a little older, but I will do my best. I will do my best. But before we go, I'd like to say one thing. Well, three. Keep it simple. KISS. Use the KISS method. Keep it simple, sweetie. Remember that you cannot do all of this at one time. Pick one area that you have and begin. Test the child, because if you don't know what the child needs, you can't give it to them. Your doctor gives you all types of examinations and things before he starts giving you medicine. You are the doctor of this child's mind. So you need to do these things. Keep in contact with the family. Sometimes they can do things at home. We don't have a lot of newspapers anymore, but they can have the child pick out words and things like that. But there's an African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. When you have a special needs child, you have to work with the home. It has to be all of us together. That right there makes the difference, and the parent can there's certain kids that cannot take 4 instructions at one time. You have to let them do one thing at a time. And just on your test, if you've got a 3-page test, don't give that child that can't handle that all 3 pages at one time.
She went frozen.
Let them do 1 page, come back and get the second one point.
You're in and out, Sister Muslimatu. Can you hear us now?
Thank you.
Okay.
I know.
Okay, so I think we caught most of what you said, and it was basically like, we have room to tailor make this education for our children, especially in our schools where we have the liberty to do it our way. And so let's take the opportunity that we have to do that. We have a couple of I'll bring in one of these questions. It says, Assalamu alaikum, are we exposing the children to their creativity? And so I think that came out in what Sister Muslimatu was sharing, and that, we're going to give if we're talking about modeling a best practice, there are going to be some opportunities in the instruction throughout the school year that will allow the children to use that part of themselves, if that's their strong suit, to help them to attain in the classroom setting. And so I think that is, again, I think that that's just something to kind of recenter ourselves on, is to not try to make it so cookie cutter all the time for our children. We have space to allow them to shine in the area where they're strong. And so as many opportunities that we can take to do that, we should do that. And so as we bring this show to a close, again, I'm just reminding you that this is the power of educating our own. Today, we were joined by Sister Muslimatu Nero. She is the principal of Al-Ikhlas Training Academy in Detroit, Michigan. And we have been having a conversation about addressing children with special needs in our Islamic schools. Generally, our schools are smaller in number in comparison to the public school, and perhaps have less resources. And we were discussing all sorts of innovative ways to help our children to succeed, in spite of the various different learning styles in the classroom. Are there any last words that you want to share, Sister Muslimatu? I know you just kind of gave us, like a 3 roundup at the end, but if there are any last words that you would want to share, now's the time to do so. Oh, she might still be frozen.
I just
we can
want
hear
to
you. Go
thank
ahead.
you for allowing me to share something that's very close to my heart. I said, I just want to thank you for allowing me to share something that's very close to my heart. But please do look at all of those different types of things. One good place to start, guys, is the choice board, because it allows them to make so many different choices in any subject. In any subject. That's it, sister. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Tricia, Sister Quran, did you have anything to add?
Well, I just wanted to say that we
I
were
would
so
say,
happy. We're so happy to have Sister Muslimatu in our community, in our school, teaching our children.
Say again.
We're really blessed to do that. And when we talk about, she mentioned one of the things that one activity that we could do with the children, and she mentioned the newspaper. I just want to add that we have the Muslim Journal, and so every school should have the Muslim Journal in their library or in their classroom. So that would be our newspaper that could be beneficial to school activities that we do. But thank you, Sister Muslimatu. You have been an excellent resource, and we really give praise and thanks to you. And she's going to provide some numbers in our WhatsApp group for those. Yeah, so she's going to provide some numbers for us in our WhatsApp group, so we can continue to benefit from her services. Assalamu alaikum.
and I want to thank you also, Sister Muslimatu.
I shall.
Thank you so very much. We're so grateful for you and the work that you're doing and this gems that you have given us. To our listening audience, we want to say to you, this has been great. Now go and share it on your pages and with your family and friends, because this is something we all need to review over and over again. You can share the link from our YouTube page, or you can just share it from social media. But please go share this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, this has been the power of educating our own.
Thank you.
We are here every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come back next week as we continue this conversation, and we look forward to having some more gems dropped on us as we take this journey to sharing resources with and among each other, so that we can all thrive in educating our own children. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Sister Clara Muhammad, a Black Muslim woman from Macon, Georgia, was an extraordinary leader and pioneer. Her contributions, especially in the development of Islamic education in America, paved the way for thousands of Muslim families to take ownership of their children's future, starting at a time when homeschooling was illegal in the United States. She eventually established a network of schools that was later named Sister Clara Muhammad Schools in her honor by her late son, Imam Warith Din Muhammad, rahimahullah. Sister Clara Muhammad helped to establish the important role women had in early Muslim American history and was an inspiration to future generations of leaders. Without her, there would not have been a nation of Islam, or the unique Sunni Muslim community that evolved from it, one that was acutely aware of the concerns and aspirations of women. May Allah have mercy on Sister Clara Muhammad.